Order, and they will be the Thugly Ducklings. And our names...
Well, my name is Jesbian. Hello, guys.
And I'm Snoogans. If you've never watched roller derby before, and we're aware that it's very possible as you're tuning in on the BBC, everybody has kind of an interesting name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think of it as maybe an alter ego. A lot of teams have quite interesting names. Some of them are just named after the town or the city that they're from, but a lot of teams do have maybe comical names or something like that. So, for example, the teams that we're seeing today, we've got Manchester Roller Derby's New Wheeled Order. They're the MRDA A team. That's the Men's Roller Derby Association A team. And Lincolnshire Rolling Thunder, Thugly Ducklings, that's the B team, and they are the MRDA team as well. We're going to give you a quick rundown of the skaters that we'll be playing today, and just to let you know, this is a mixed gender sort of event under the MRDA rule set, and the gender policy. The MRDA is open to skaters of all genders, male, female, trans, non-binary. It's really inclusive side of the sport. In that sense, the sport in general is actually pretty inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's quite forward-thinking in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter age, gender, what you look like, size you are. It doesn't matter. As you said, it's all inclusive, and that's the best part about this sport and about this community.
It's absolutely fantastic. So we're going to give you a rundown of the teams. Today, skating in green, we've got the New Wheeled Order. We've got 042 is Lieutenant Dam. 05 is Fish. He's their captain. 06 is Rufio. Number 1 is Don Gingiovanni. 10 is Optimus Grime. 1328 is Hankin. 1997 is Cloudstrike. Number 2 is Shrooms. 33 is Shaw. 43 is Scotty Dog. 50 is Peacock. 51 is Richie Rampage. 57 is Wolf. Number 9 is Velociraptor, and 95 is McLeod.
And playing for the Lincolnshire Roller Thunder, also known as the Thugly Ducklings, playing in purple today, we have 041 Jason Slatham, 1209 Tel Piero, 1337 Bear Skills, number 246 Lil Joker, number 26 also the team's captain Romaniac, number 316 Skate Pliskin, number 404 Counterfeit, number 7 Wodge, number 8 Gazabite, number 853 Dorney, and last but not least we have number 88 Dancing Diamond.
So yeah, those will be the skaters that you'll see on track today, and it's been a fantastic tournament so far.
Absolutely, it's been filled with adrenaline, filled with excitement. All the teams have worked very hard to get this far, and you can see the amount of effort they've put on track in order to get as far as they have done today.
Absolutely, and when we say it's been a fantastic tournament so far, we don't mean just specifically here in Stoke-on-Trent. We also mean that this has been a build-up of a year-long tournament. British Championships is a multi-division, multi-tiered tournament. The MRDA-aligned side of things, it runs across 4 tiers and 2 divisions, north and south. So that's a lot of sport.
It is a lot of sport, a lot of skating.
It's a lot of skating, a lot of organisation, and it's essentially all kind of what you'll see about roller derby is that it's all kind of by the people for the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all volunteer run within leagues. So, for example, sort of Manchester Roller Derby is a league. There are multiple teams within the league. So there's, as we've mentioned, New Wheeled Order is the MRDA A team. Chaos Engine is the MRDA B team. Also competing this weekend is the Checkerbroads. They are the WFTDA A team. That's the Women's Flat Track Derby Association. There's also the WFTDA B team, which is the Furies, and they even have what they call an OTA team, which is sort of a mashup of MRDA and WFTDA aligned skaters, which they call Furious Engine. So it's a mix of, in sort of simpler language, sort of male and female skaters, but obviously not confined to those genders.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, it's an all-inclusive sport, and it's not just on men and women.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've had a lot of roller derby so far this weekend. 8 games yesterday.
8 games indeed.
It's
Many games.
Yeah, 8 games across 2 tracks. We do also have 1 game still running over on our second track, which sees Nottingham Roller Derby facing off against Dorset. Nottingham currently in the lead, 116 to 73. That's playing off for the 3rd, 4th place in the Tier 2 WFTDA aligned semi-final. Well, 3rd, 4th place. And it's been just absolutely sublime. The level of gameplay and sportspersonship this weekend has been fantastic. Feel free to head over to www.britishchamps.com to see a whole load of statistics, which at this moment in time will make no sense to you. It may make a bit more sense as we move through the games this afternoon. You've got 3 games today that we will try and talk you through, and hopefully everything will make a bit more sense.
Yes, absolutely. It's what we're here for, just to kind of explain roughly what's going on, what players are playing what position, and as you said, just to kind of get a bit more of a clearance for people who have not seen this sport before.
Of course, and I mean, Jez, you've just mentioned about different positions.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Go for it.
Can you explain a little bit to us about those different positions?
Yes, of course. So generally on the track, you have 3 positions, a pivot, a jammer, and also a blocker. And basically what happens is on the track you have 5 players per team on the track at a time, so you have a maximum of 10 players on the track at the same time. And 4 of those players are known as blockers, and 1 of those players is known as a jammer. A jammer is what we call a point scorer, and that person, as you'll see later on in the game, is the person with the star helmet cover on their helmets. And basically the aim of the jammer is to go through the blockers and try and pass each blocker's hips. And every opposing blocker that jammer passes is a single point. And the blockers, well, it's kind of in the title, it's their job to kind of block or slow down the jammer, and by doing that they can very easily hit the jammer off using their hips and their shoulders, or they can make impenetrable walls within their team themselves. Now, the pivot, this is where it gets a little bit complex. In one of the blockers' rotation, as I said, there's 4 blockers, and within that rotation you have a pivot, and they're the ones that have the stripe helmet cover on top of their helmets. And basically what happens is whenever the jammer gets stuck within the wall or they get extremely tired, they can very easily take off that helmet cover and pass that to the pivot, what we like to call a star pass.
Yep.
To which then the pivot will put the star helmet cover on their heads and then carry on as the jammer as well. And then at that point, the jammer that has previously passed the star will then become a blocker. So it's a little bit of a mix and match kind of thing, but it's a very well tactical game, and it kind of keeps everyone on their toes.
Absolutely.
And it's just really, really fun to watch. It's fun for everyone and for all ages, and as you said, it's all inclusive, so everyone can get involved. And the best part about this sport is that you don't have to stick to a single position. You can change around, and if you fancy a bit of jamming, you can do that. If you want to do a bit of blocking, you can do that. Or if you fancy both, try a bit of pivoting.
Yeah, of course. And some people who both jam and block affectionately refer to themselves as blammers, a blocker jammer, or double threats. And those are not necessarily few and far between, but they're real kind of gold dust.
Oh yes.
You if you're able to do both, it's definitely a real asset to your team to be able to kind of switch it up. It's a very interesting game which is able to switch very quickly from offensive and defensive play, sometimes on sort of like on the turn of a penny, and it can be very fast paced. And what you will see today, if you stick with us throughout the 3 games, because we've got the MRDA aligned, followed by the 2 WFTDA aligned. Although we are playing under the same rule set and it is exactly the same game, you'll see that with the different body types and with the different genders, it can look like a very different game.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this sport, is that even though we're all playing exactly the same thing, just with the difference in our bodies, it can look so different. And I'm actually a really big fan of commentating. You've heard me mention the phrase OTA, which we use as abbreviation for Open to All. I'm really a fan of commentating OTA roller derby because you get that real mix of the WFTDA style and the MRDA style. So we're going to stop waffling on, although we hope we've been informative for you, because we've just heard the rolling whistle, which indicates there is 30 seconds or less before we start this game. And we are now looking at our track here on track 1, or as we've been referring to this weekend as the classic track. And that is indicating that the jam is on. That's our 30-minute halves are broken into 2-minute jams. And we are active. Our active jammers, that's Lieutenant Dan jamming for New World Order, and he is your lead jammer, as indicated by his jammer ref pointing to him, and that was the sharp 2 whistles that you heard.
And the best part is about the lead jammer is that they have the power. The best part about the lead jammer is that they have the power to call off the jam at any point. So this is what we like to call a bit of smart jamming. So the lead jammer can very easily come out the cluster of blockers, or the pack, what we like to call. And if they see that the opposing jammer is catching up on them, they can very easily just tap their hips, and the ref will blow the whistle and be like, that's the end of that jam. We can move on to the next jam.
Absolutely.
So sometimes they're not full 2 minutes. Sometimes they last a few seconds, or sometimes they do go the full 2 minutes.
Of course.
It varies every time.
Of course, and I don't doubt that you will see a combination of those today throughout the 3 games that we've got for you. Lieutenant Dan made the decision to call off that jam by tapping his hips, picking up 2 points to nothing against Lincolnshire, and we've now got a second consecutive lead jammer status for Manchester. Optimus Grime jamming for Manchester this time round, and that's a full 4 points, and some defensive jamming there from Optimus Grime, managing to take off Lincoln's jammer, Skate Pliskin.
Absolutely. And also with jammers as well, you don't have to be very quick and very nimble and on your toe stops all the time. There are different variations of jammer, so you do get the very pushy ones, which Optimus Grime is a very good example of this. As you guys saw just earlier, he managed to push between all 4 blockers, just kind of separating them, creating a path for himself, for him to be able to get out and to claim those 4 points. Not all jammers are very pushy like that. As I said, you do get a variation. You get pushy ones, you get nimble ones who like to kind of run around on the edge of the track and kind of get around the pack, which I'm sure you guys will see very many examples of this very soon. But it's just nice to kind of get a nice variation of different players.
Absolutely. So next up to jam, we have Dancing Diamond for Lincoln and Fish for Manchester.
And it looks like Fish has managed to claim himself the lead jammer position, claiming the lead jammer position.
And it looks like the star pass you mentioned previously when we were talking about the game, Dorney there, I believe that is, as we were talking about, is your pivot with the stripe on his helmet cover. He has taken the star helmet cover from Dancing Diamond, who was your jammer at the beginning of the jam, and he is now in possession of that, and he's trying to get through the Manchester wall to complete what we call the initial pass. Jammers needing to complete that initial pass before they're eligible to score any points.
And if the jammer has done a successful star pass to the pivot, they've completed their initial pass, they will not be able to score any points unless that star is placed on their helmet. They can't exactly carry the helmet cover throughout the whole game, because otherwise that would be very unfair.
Absolutely, yeah, they'll be sneaky and hidden, and they would be, in technical terminology, they would be considered an inactive jammer.
Yes.
So we're going to see one of those full 2-minute jams that we mentioned. Fish has picked up a penalty, and that means that he has lost his status as lead jammer. When you incur a penalty, you lose any benefits essentially that you had. So it means that Dorney is now the only jammer on track, and because we've got no lead jammer, there's no possibility of the jam being called. So there's just 8 seconds left in the jam, so it's going to come to a close soon, and Dorney's put those first points on the board for Lincoln.
But what we normally call is when one jammer, whether you're lead jammer or not, if one jammer is placed in the box, that's what we like to call a power jam, which means each penalty given to a jammer or a blocker lasts 30 seconds, which means the jammer in the penalty box is completely out of action, can't get on track for the next 30 seconds. So the jammer that's on track has to make up those full 30 seconds to score as many points as possible, using their teammates for offense and defense to try and help them rack up those points.
Absolutely. So it looks like Fish had managed to exit the penalty box, have completed his time before the jam ended. So we got a full complement of jammers back on track for this fresh jam. And that's Rufio is your lead jammer for Manchester.
And Rufio very swiftly and very nicely quickly calls off the jam. That is the calling off the jam, the hip tap that we mentioned earlier, saying that the lead jammer has power to call off the jam at any time they wish.
Yeah, we actually got a really nice view of that in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, folks, for giving us that view so we could explain that to our viewers. Much appreciated. It's almost like we planned it.
Okay, next up jamming from Manchester, we have Lieutenant Dan, who has also claimed the lead jammer position. And jamming for Lincolnshire, we have Skate Pliskin.
Pliskin has incurred a penalty, so he will take a seat in the penalty box, meaning Lieutenant Dan is now on a power jam. Dan being a really strong jammer, and this is an opportunity for him to potentially rack up a significant quantity of points.
That was a very nice apex jump there. Apex jumps, as you can see, we are based on an oval track and we call the corners the apexes, which gives the jammers a full advantage that if they have enough speed, they can very easily jump all four blockers by jumping on that apex. And if they land within track, it will be known as a successful apex jump. It is very exciting when this happens. I've been practicing myself and I have not managed to do one successfully just yet. But it is also very impressive to see. Lieutenant Dan out the pack once again, coming around to claim those points. And at this point you can see the Lincolnshire blockers are lining up and kind of using each other to make a wall to try and slow down that jammer.
No, you're right. It was a really good wall, and there was a really nice shoulder check from Counterfeit on that 004 on the inside of the turn there. Unfortunately, because he didn't remain upright, it meant that he wasn't a legal blocker to be passed. So Lieutenant Dan was safe to come back on track ahead of him. You're probably discovering as we're talking, there are a lot of rules in roller derby. We don't expect you to keep up to speed with all of them. We do hope that you're enjoying what you're seeing, and that some of it is making sense, and that you're enjoying the full contact aspect of it. I know this morning I got to catch some of the Italy game, the Rugby World Cup, over in Japan. That was bloody fantastic. I love a full contact sport. It's just, I find it very entertaining. And I think that's what drew me to roller derby initially. It's just a different spin on things. Some people do compare roller derby to rugby on skates without the ball. So maybe if that helps folks with a bit of context, maybe that might help to make a little bit of sense. Optimus Grime right now on this fresh jam is through as your lead jammer. And it looks like we've had a star pass potentially. Gazabite with star in hand is through the pack. And it looks like he's on a star pass, Jez. Not star pass, sorry, a power jam. Because Optimus Grime is headed to the penalty box.
Yes, Optimus Grime sits down for a good 30 seconds during this jam, whilst Gazabite tries to take full advantage and kind of try and rack up those points as many possible. Now you can see here that his blockers are kind of setting out at the back, and basically from this he can kind of get advantage from splitting the pack. Now normally what happens with this is that if the blockers are kind of spread too far out across the track, the jam refs will then call a no pack because they can no longer spread further than 10 feet away from each other. So at that point, the Lincolnshire blockers kind of stayed behind and just let their jammer kind of push the Manchester blockers forward in order spreading out the pack and calling the no pack, allowing the jammer an easy pass for those 4 points.
Absolutely. It's why you end up seeing the pack in usually quite a contained space. It's because we have a legal blocking distance, so you can't end up with the pack sort of spread all the way around the track. Not only would it be ineffective, think buddy system, always have a buddy. As a blocker, you always want your friend nearby to help create a wall to try and deflect those blockers. But yeah, again, as Jez has said, you want to try and keep within that legal distance to be able to legally block somebody. And if you end up spreading past that, you have to release the jammer that you are holding, because if you don't, you incur a penalty. An out of bounds block. No, an out of play block.
Yeah.
There's a lot of terminology.
Too many rules.
There's a lot. But I think it's to an extent it's all valid. And the thing is, when it's all in play, it makes sense. It's just a lot to learn to the casual observer.
Yes, absolutely. I fully agree with that. And it looks like an official timeout has been called.
It's a team timeout.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
It's all right. I was just looking at hand signals for our jam timer. That's one of our non-skating officials dressed in the black standing middle of the on the middle of the track itself at the moment. So each team is allowed 3 timeouts per half. The timeout lasts for a minute. It's an opportunity for the teams just to kind of either. They happen for many reasons. It could either be just to take a minute and take a breather. Sometimes they're tactical, so if the opposition has been on a run, having a bunch of really good jams and scoring lots of points, you might want to take that time out to kind of break their stride. It could just be that maybe your team has been on a run of picking up multiple penalties and you need to take that moment and just kind of calm everything down. There's numerous reasons that you might choose to take a timeout, but Manchester opting for the timeout then. And they're back now, game is back in play, and Fish is your lead jammer. Dancing Diamond doing another star pass straight to Jason Slaysden, and he's now got a couple of blockers left to pass. Big contact. Ooh, solid hit from Shrooms.
See right here, this is what we call recycling the jammer back. If a blocker such as Shrooms, as you guys saw earlier, managed to hit the jammer out of track, the jammer just can't jump back on in front of all players, because that will be known as what we call a cut penalty, and therefore they'll be sent straight to the penalty box. In order for the jammer to come back on track legally, they have to go behind the blockers that had hit that person off in order to keep it legal and to keep it fair. But that was a very nice shoulder check from Shrooms right there.
And this is the thing, while this is, of course, as we've mentioned, a full contact sport, it doesn't need to be big contact. Sometimes it's just well placed.
Yes.
And that's what Shrooms just did there. It wasn't massive contact, but that shoulder just in sort of like in the front of the chest, just off centre, was enough to take Slaysden just off track, just sort of knock him off centre, and then he had the space to do the recycle.
Okay, so next jamming up for Manchester, and there's also claims the lead jammer position would be Rufio, and jamming for Lincolnshire we have Jason Slatham.
So it looks like he did pick up a penalty right at the end of the last jam, so he did start in the penalty box.
So it looks like Jason Slatham, still stuck at the back of the pack there, has taken the helmet cover off in order for preparation to do the star pass to his pivot. And in order to do this, the pivot needs to come close enough to the jammer in order to reach for that helmet cover, because it has to be passed from hand to hand. It cannot be thrown across the track. It has to be a hand-to-hand pass. which can prove challenging, but it can also be very effective, and it's much safer as well in many aspects too.
Of course, you don't want to sort of fling the helmet cover, have it land on track and end up getting caught in someone's wheels.
Exactly. So at this point, it looks like the helmet cover has been successfully passed to Gazabite, who is still struggling to kind of get out of the pack to do his initial.
I tell you what, though, he was so close to making it out of the pack here on the edge of turn 3, which we've got a beautiful view of right now. But Peacock, out of nowhere, was right up in his grill, and they were like, "No, you're not coming out. You shall not pass." Getting a bit Gandalf.
Just a little. There's nothing wrong with that.
Just a touch. Rufio being knocked off by Lil Joker. And just to kind of give some context for you, if you're wondering, sort of, obviously, British Championships, does this mean that this is a kind of a championships that may indicate this is a big sport? While we are still kind of a grassroots sport, it is growing. Mentioning Little Joker has reminded me, we do have World Cups, both men's and women's. Little Joker last year played for Team Poland in the Men's World Cup in Barcelona. I was lucky enough myself to be part of the commentary crew over there. Skate Pliskin as well actually was part of Team Scotland, Para Scotland, along with Optimus Grime. Lieutenant Dam skated for Team Ireland. You've got a slew of international level skaters playing in this Tier 1 game. I'm sort of having a look out at the moment. Dorney is part of the training squad for England men's roller derby for the 2020 World Cup. We're growing. We're certainly growing. So it's definitely something to bear in mind and keep an eye out for if you're kind of considering, if you're interested. Have a look. Have a Google. Other search engines are available.
So focusing back on what's happening on track here, it looks like Lieutenant Dam has his lead jammer position for Manchester, and Lincolnshire jammer Best Skills. It looks like he's just done a successful star pass to his pivot for Dorney. However, Dorney did not have enough time in order to get out of the pack, complete his initial, and put the star helmet cover on his helmet. It doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes there's plenty of time, sometimes there isn't enough time.
Absolutely. So we are a quarter of the way through this game. We've got 14 minutes and 10 seconds remaining of this first half. Manchester are a reasonable way out in the lead, 88 points to 18, as we see Skate Pliskin take on Optimus Grime coming off that jammer line. Both teams with some very impressive walls at the moment. And Skate Pliskin just managing to stay upright and in bounds to pick up lead jammer, and he is over the moon. You can see. Did you see the response there as he went past the crowd?
Absolutely.
That was wonderful.
Very chuffed with himself.
That was wonderful.
Optimus Grime. You could see, as I mentioned with the recycling earlier, you could have just seen he got hit off the track and he came back round to go onto the back of the track. But there was another blocker there on the Lincolnshire team that was just behind him. So he took himself back off track to go behind that blocker, making it a legal re-entry.
Yeah.
If he had just jumped back on in front of that one Lincolnshire blocker, he would have been given a cut track and sent to the box. But luckily, that didn't happen.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, as a jammer or a blocker, really, if you're ever unsure of whether that skater was ahead of you, it's always worth taking yourself off and coming on behind them, because it's just not worth risking the penalty.
Always worth playing it safe.
That was a really nice arm whip from Cloudstrike. Fish was coming through the pack. He is your lead jammer at the moment, and Cloudstrike saw him. I'm not going to say flagging, that's not the correct word, but he wasn't quite at full speed. And Cloudstrike saw him, reached out an arm, and so they sort of linked arms, and Cloudstrike grabbed him and propelled him through the pack. and the terminology is, it's an arm whip. You're whipping your friend through the pack and propelling them.
The interesting part about whips is that you don't just get an arm whip, you also get a shirt whip, which at the minute is actually very common.
Yep.
Because not always the blocker or whoever is giving the whip is not entirely sure where the jammer is. So sometimes the jammer just either grabs a shirt or grabs their hips and just kind of pulls them along and just kind of uses their speed to get themselves out of the pack. And it looks like... here we go with an apex jump once again. However, it was out of track and therefore given a cut penalty to Rufio on the Manchester team, meaning that Dancing Diamond, the jammer for the Lincolnshire team, has got herself a power jam advantage. Again, giving herself 30 seconds to score as many points as possible.
So she is still yet to complete her initial pass, and she has made the decision to pass the star to Gazabite. And just so you're aware, the minute that she removed the helmet cover before she'd completed the initial pass, she rendered the possibility of picking up League Jammer impossible. Once the helmet cover is removed, you are no longer eligible for League Jammer.
And at this point, if there is no League Jammer title in any jam, then that jam will carry on for the full 2 minutes until the clock runs out, which for some jammers are words of nightmare.
Yeah.
2 minutes does not sound like a long time, but believe me, when you're jamming it, it's a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you, I know obviously it's for a lot of folks who are watching at home. You've, as we've said before, you've got no context, and this might still not be making a lot of sense. But if you look at the way that these blockers are sort of holding on to each other, and the force that you can see the jammers are putting into trying to move through the walls, I'm sure you can try and imagine how difficult that is going to be to do for 2 full minutes. It's exhausting. And it speaks to the athleticism and the training that these skaters do and that they put in, because while this is a hobby, it is something that we do for fun. It is something that a lot of people do take seriously, and as we've mentioned, it is something that can be taken to a really high level.
Absolutely. As you said, we have some international skaters on this Tier 1. So not only is it a lot of training, but also gives off a lot of opportunities as well. And the best part is about Derby is that if you're not interested or not able to skate, we do have many other positions available around the sport as well. We have non-skating officials, also what we like to call NSOs. We have announcers, we have bench crew who pretty much coach the skaters whilst they're on play. We have many different opportunities for everyone, which is one of the best parts about this sport.
Yeah, I mean, actually, as you're looking at the track right now, you'll see that our skating officials as well. There's 7 skating officials per game, and I think last time I checked, there's 11 non-skating officials per game, tracking stats, timing penalties, tracking scores, running the scoreboard. It takes a lot to make a single game of roller derby happen, let alone a 16-game tournament.
Absolutely.
As well as everything behind the scenes. You looked really excited there. Go on.
I really tried to hold my excitement in there.
Please don't.
Apex jumps, they get me every time. It's just one of my favourite things in Derby, and I've seen quite a few Apex jumps this weekend, but the distance that some players cover is so impressive. Like you get some of the very tall jammers with the very long legs. Oh, they can cover meters of track in one jump, and it's crazy.
I really hope that he's watching at home, because I'm about to give him a shout out, and it's going to be kind of embarrassing if he's not, or somebody's going to tell him, and I'm going to sound like some super crazy lame fangirl. But I need to mention specifically Reaper. Skates for Knights of Discomfort. I'm fairly certain, I was at a scrim recently, and I'm fairly certain he may have apex jumped high enough to clear the head of the penalty track.
Oh, wow.
Like, he jumped across the apex of turn 1 and 2, but the height that he got, like the angle that we were looking, I'm fairly certain that you could have cleared their head. Well, that's a thing. Yes, all right. Here we are then. Well, there's not much more you can say about it. It's just, you just kind of stood there with your mouth hanging open, catching flies. It's phenomenal.
It's crazy. It just, like I said, it excites me every time.
Yes.
And it's just phenomenal to watch. Okay, so jamming for Manchester, we have Rufio.
But it's Skate Pliskin for Lincolnshire, who's your lead jammer. And he's currently up against a solid 2-wall. That is McLeod and Donjan Giovanni.
Really covering all edges of track. And at that point, you can see Giovanni was kind of really using his hips and using McLeod to push off to really get that distance, kind of hit that jammer for the hips, which was covered very well. But too bad the jammer was very quick to kind of quickly come back behind the blockers to then race off to pass them to claim those points.
So it looks like Rufio coming up, getting his hips around those blockers for a full scoring pass.
Now again, you can see here, Pliskin has only 2 blockers to pass, but you can also see, even though his team can easily give up offense for those 2 blockers to make it a quicker escape for that jammer, they still stayed behind, as they can see in preparation, that the opposing jammer, who was sat in the penalty box, was getting ready to get back on track. Each penalty that every person on the track gets does last up to 30 seconds, but on the last 10 seconds they are told to stand from their chair so they are ready to come back on track. And normally with skaters being very track aware, they tend to keep an eye out for the jammer in the penalty box, waiting for them to stand, and once they stand they communicate to each other and get ready and brace themselves for that jammer to come back on, as they don't want the opposing team to score any more points.
Absolutely. And you can't hear much of what's going on track through this stream, but if you ever happen to see roller derby in person, it's a live game, you'll be very aware of the communication that happens on track. So the skaters talking to each other and being communicating about stuff happening, like Jezza just mentioned, from the penalty box, placement of other skaters on track, being very aware that the jammer is coming, what lane they're in, so that we kind of refer that the track is split into 4 lanes. Lane 1 is kind of the inside, lane 4 is the outside. So it'd be like jammer coming lane 3, stuff like that. And depending on how teams train, they might have kind of certain words that will indicate a certain a play or a drill or something. So yeah, there's a lot of communication in the game as well. Absolutely,
and not just extending from that penalty time. There is also a little bit in the derby world that if you get more than 7, if you get 7 penalties, that will be what's known as a foul out. You've gotten too many penalties. That's kind of it, really. You can't play for the rest of that game. And we do have one player here who's on his 6th penalty for this first half, which is very risky. So that is a potential foul out, but we won't know until it comes to that point.
And I mean, to be fair, I've called games, I've watched games where somebody's managed to rack up 6 penalties in the first half and has managed to complete the game clean.
Wow.
It's and you kind of, every time they go on, you're like, is this going to be the one? Is this where they foul out? But they managed to maintain and that's sort of the term we use. It's like if they manage to pick up no more penalties, we refer to it as clean. So it's like they were managed to play cleanly for the rest of the game, even though they've amassed a large quantity of penalties in a very short time. And sometimes it's possible. Every now and again you just have that moment. So if you are tuned in with us on the BBC stream, but you have been interested in the other game, that I'm just going to interrupt myself because that was absolutely beautiful. That was a one-footed backwards apex jump from Optimus Grime, and that was just wonderful. There's no other way to describe it.
That's the best part about apex jumps, is that it's not just two-footed off the ground, two-footed on the ground.
Yeah, it's not just up, down, done. It's panache.
You can do a little turn with it. You can do one-footed, as Optimus Prime just performed for us very nicely there. It's crazy. And the best part about this derby, about skating in general, is that it's not just very strict and tactical. You can get creative with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the best parts.
And I mean, people playing today and today specifically and in the sport in general have come from all sorts of different backgrounds. We've got people who have never skated before until they found roller derby, and there's other people who come from an artistic skating background. Some people ramp skating, skateboarders, street hockey. There's loads of different stuff, and they've managed to kind of find their place in roller derby and have adapted the skills that they had previously to fit in with this sport. So everybody brings something different. I love it.
So looking on the track for Manchester jammer Fish has claimed the lean jammer position, and jamming for Lincolnshire we have Bear Skills, and looks like Fish has just currently been struggling at the back of the pack there a little bit, but he's just been nicely recycled by Romaniac there at number 26. And Fish, you can see right there, he had his head up, looking over the track. He was struggling to get past those Lincolnshire blockers, but then he looked around, he saw the jammer approaching, so therefore he quickly called it off just in the nick of time.
I'll tell you what he actually saw. He actually saw Bear Skills going to take a seat in the penalty box.
Oh, yes.
So Fish made the option to call the jam where it was and put on a fresh jammer to do a power jam stance for New World Order. You may have seen Fish doing kind of a double fist bump motion. It's kind of the international hand signal for power jam. First time I saw it was 2014, the inaugural Men's World Cup. It was the Wizards of Oz. Beautiful apex jump from Grime. I'm sorry that you were looking at me and you missed it.
Damn it.
The Wizards of Oz, Australia's roller derby national team, that was their hand signal to indicate from their bench crew to indicate that there was a power jam in their favour. And it seems that everybody adopted it, and now you see it all over the world. International roller derby, folks.
Oh dear, and it looks like Optimus Grime has been given a penalty there, making him take a little sit down in the penalty box for 30 seconds. Bear Skills back on track.
Round and around he goes. Where he stops,
nobody knows.
Nobody knows. He's not even sure himself. He just hopes there's points.
Now at this point you can see a blocker from Bear Team's team on Lincolnshire. He has just attempted to give offense in order to try and clear the Manchester ball in order to give Bear Skills a nice clean path to skate through. Although not all successful, it is still a good opportunity to kind of take that risk, see where it goes. If it doesn't work, take yourself away from that pack and then try it again. But it's also, again, being track aware of that opposing jammer as well.
So, sorry to interrupt you, but Optimus Grime back on track was working his way through the pack, hit after hit after hit with the blockers. He's now back in the penalty box for engaging with a blocker out of the legal blocking zone. So we got a blocking out of play penalty. It's not something you see a lot with jammers. It's usually something that blockers get. But it was actually a penalty because he was engaging with the blocker as opposed to the blocker engaging with him. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't you as the blocker coming at me, it was me coming for you. I'm not coming for you, it's fine. It was Optimus Grime going for the blocker as opposed to the blocker was passive and had heard the no call, the no pack, whereas Grime presumably hadn't and continued to try and block.
Absolutely.
So he picked up that penalty. We have hit half-time. Somehow that's 30 minutes of roller derby done.
That's crazy. That went so quickly.
Scores at the half-time. I've just seen you on the screen. Scores at the half-time. 42 points to Lincolnshire, 164 to Manchester. Quite a spread differential, but it's been an incredible game. It's going to sound cliched, but I don't feel the gameplay represents the score.
No, absolutely.
Both teams have been fighting incredibly hard, and I think it's been a fantastic game. And if this is your introduction to roller derby, then you're welcome.
And we hope you stick around for the second half.
Yes, very much so. We hope that you're enjoying it. Please do stick around. We've got more for you there. As we've mentioned, we've got 2 more games. We have the Tier 2 WFTDA Aligned Final and the Tier 1 WFTDA Aligned Final. The next game we'll see Wiltshire taking on North Wales. I've heard that they've played a few times before. Mm-hmm. They're familiar friends, familiar foes, and from what I understand, it is always an incredible matchup. So that is going to be one that you do not want to miss either. We are going to take a little bit of time, because I don't know about you, but I think I need to decompress.
Yes. That excitement just...
We're also in an official review at the moment on track. So it looks like... actually, we'll talk a little bit about that, actually, because we need to explain to the folks about an official review.
Yes, absolutely.
So each team gets 1 official review per half. It's the opportunity for the teams to review either a query with something to do with the officiating. It could be either they're querying a call that was made or a lack of call. So it may be that they felt a jammer cut track, or a penalty should have been issued or wasn't issued.
Okay, so the purple team have elected to use their official review to see if they could upgrade the penalty awarded to green 1-0 they believed it was a gross back block. We have decided not to upgrade the penalty. They have lost their official review. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. So we just had the ref for a conclusion for the official review. It was challenged that the penalty should have been differ by providing a back block to Lincolnshire, I believe.
So Lincolnshire were calling the penalty. We're calling the official review. So essentially, back block was awarded to Optimus Grime, green 1-0, and they were looking for that to be upgraded to an egregious back block. Which is essentially, in sort of basic terms, it's a heavily illegal move and something which would have a skater expelled from the game. It's unsporting conduct essentially. It has been determined by our officials that that is not the case. So while the back block penalty stands, it will not be upgraded to an expellable offence. So the official review is lost, and we're now officially in half-time.
There you go.
So the timings stand, the scores, stand. A smattering of penalties. Our skater 404 for Lincolnshire is still on 6.
So that'll be 404. That'll be counterfeit. So he, as Snuggin said, he is currently on 6 penalties. If he gets one more, that is him fouled out for the game. But as you said in the previous screen that you mentioned, some players may get very heavy penalties right at the first half, but then play completely clean throughout the second half. So we don't know what's going to generally happen during the second half. Anything could happen. We can get a point lead difference. We can get many other players that could rack up some penalties, could get a potential foul out. We don't know until we get there, and we hope you guys will join us in the second half to find out with us. We hope you're enjoying this, and I hope we're making this as much clearer as we can, and we hope you're just having as much fun as we are.
We really are.
Oh, it's so good.
We're going to take a little bit of time away. We will be back probably in around 5 minutes, so go and grab a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice, and we will see you very, very soon.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you shortly.
Rolling Thunder's Thugly Ducklings and Manchester Roller Derby's New World Order here at British Championships 2019.
It's very exciting.
It really is. Can I just interrupt you on one
course,
thing?
carry
I'll tell
on.
you what is also incredibly exciting. The game that has just finished, the third, fourth place game for Tier 2 WFTDA aligned final. Third, fourth place game. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Between Dorset Roller Derby and Nottingham Roller Derby has just finished 180 points to Dorset Roller Derby, 181 points to Nottingham Roller Derby.
Just 1 point.
Just 1 point in it. I'm personally really quite happy and excited about that because Nottingham Roller Derby is my home league. So absolutely ecstatic. Super fantastic, wonderful stuff. But back to this game.
That is crazy.
Yes.
Just a little shout out to you guys. So Roller Derby is a very high scoring game. A jammer can score 4 points per lap, and they can do between 1 to, I don't know, probably about way over 10 possibly laps.
Potentially. I think highest scoring jam I personally have seen this weekend is 27, 28 points.
Yes.
That's the highest scoring jam I have seen this weekend. I don't know if any of the rest of the crew have seen higher.
I think one person saw a 36 jam, 36 point jam. Not me personally. I saw a 28-point jam earlier this morning when I was announcing in-house earlier, and that was very impressive. That I was just about. But Roller Derby is a very high-scoring game, and to lose or win by 1 point, that's nail-biting.
Yes, absolutely phenomenal stuff. There has been some really fantastic gameplay, and I know that the third, fourth place for the Tier 1 MRDA game between Glasgow Men's Roller Derby and Mild Discomfort was also an incredibly close game, with Glasgow coming away with the win. And from what I understand, that had been really close throughout as well. We've had some. There have been some larger differentials this weekend, just like we're seeing with this game here. But there have been some incredibly close scores as well.
Absolutely.
We are seconds away from getting started again, so you can see we are back to our trackside view, and there we are, Optimus Grime starting in the penalty box, if you will recall from the previous half, having picked up that back block penalty. Skate Pliskin taking a big hit there from Don Gingivanni and being recycled all the way back round past the pivot line. And now Optimus Grime out of the box.
Out of the box and fighting his way through, wanting to complete his initial pass. And so he does, claiming the lead jammer position as well, giving him the power to call off the jam at any point which he wishes. And a nice little turn on the outside lane there on lane 4. Managing to get out the pack once again, claiming himself 4 more points for his team. Escape Pinsky managing to just about get himself out the pack after a few hard hits there. He wasn't wearing the jammer helmet cover, but he did have it stashed.
Yes.
That is also another thing that is acceptable in jams, is that the jammer can take off the helmet cover and not hide it per se, because that'll be completely unfair, but stashing, kind of like holding in your hand but still have it visible.
Grasped in the hand but not completely enclosed.
Yes.
And that is in the rules, that it cannot be fully enclosed in the hand, but it can be held. So if you think maybe holding the top of the cover and having some of it kind of hanging out the bottom of your hand, that's absolutely fine. So we are into a fresh jam, and a fresh jammer for Manchester. Velociraptor, saw him jamming a little bit yesterday, haven't seen him jam yet today, and he has picked up lead. Dancing Diamond is still your active jammer. She does have the helmet cover in her hand, but it looks like she's contemplating giving it to Gazbite, who is her pivot this time round.
Velociraptor really, he got stuck there a little bit on the backpack from Lincolnshire, being held nicely, really locking down that jammer and keeping like a very tight wall, keeping their shoulders locked together and not letting him budge. But Velociraptor being very quick on his toes and kind of very quick and nimble and kind of figuring out the nooks and crannies of that wall to see what little gap he can get himself through.
Absolutely, and it looks like he couldn't quite get through that gap because Velociraptor is now taking a seat in the penalty box, meaning that Dancing Diamond is your sole jammer on track. She's having a real lot of trouble getting past Shrooms right now. He's causing her all kinds of hassle, and while that might sound like a really negative thing, it's a really positive thing for Shrooms as a blocker. And we've mentioned before about sportspersonship. And I guarantee you that at the end of this jam there will be handshakes, hugs, all that kind of stuff. As people may be familiar, people who are familiar with full contact sports, you'll have seen this kind of stuff before. It's almost like the more you kind of smash each other up, the more love there is, which is a bizarre concept, but we see the proof of it on the regular here in roller derby.
What happens on track, we leave on track. Once the game's over, we hug it out.
Yeah.
Best thing to be. Okay, so with no jammers currently sat in the box, but we do have one Manchester blocker. Sorry, I apologise. 2 Manchester blockers sat in the penalty box, meaning there's only 2 blockers from Manchester on track, and we've got a full pack for Lincolnshire, giving Lincolnshire a pack advantage, and it looks like
Bear Skills has taken full advantage of that.
So Bear Skills very nicely and very quickly passed to claim lead jammer, and then was able to claim himself 4 more points before the end of that jam.
However, that jam has been called due to an injured skater, so we will take a few moments. As you may expect, this is a full contact sport, and sometimes injuries do happen, and we do take these things seriously. Of course, we do have medics on site to deal with this kind of stuff. Our medical crew this weekend have been absolutely fantastic. Events Medical, we do love them to absolute death. I've worked an awful lot of games, events, tournaments with Events Medical, and they're wonderful people. It's not just a case of they're there to just provide medical attention. They're really kind of the whole sort of bedside manner and that kind of stuff as well is just really they're very caring.
Absolutely. And they do, as you said, they don't just make an effort just to be there to provide medical attention, but they do understand the games as well, and they get to know the players very well.
Yes, exactly that. They have an understanding of roller derby and things to look out for. So that's really important, and it's good that we have people who understand the sport that look after us. So it looks like our skater has made their way back to their bench. They will get checked over, which is fantastic, and we were able to get back on with the game, and we are into a fresh jam. Who have we got as our lead jammer, Jess?
So for Manchester, we have lead jammer Fish, who has very nicely and very confidently taken the lead jammer position and has nicely swooped on the outside lane there just to pass the Lincolnshire blockers. Oh no, I do apologise. I'm mixing myself up here. Fish just approaching the pack now. There we go, taking a nice little turn, but got nicely hit out there. But due to the blocker falling over, he was able just to jump straight back on track. So as the players went upright, the jammer can very easily just jump back on. Doesn't matter if it's in front or behind, and then just carry on. However, if the blocker did hit the jammer and was still upright, at that point they would have to go behind. So interesting stance there from Peacock. They have moved, but it's an age-old thing, a rule about pivots, which we've thrown a lot of rule knowledge at our spectators so far, and it's a very niche rule. We'll leave it out for the moment. Might come back to it later if it happens again. Optimus Grind, your lead jammer, after a couple of hits
through that 3-wall pack at the front. And he is starting on a power jam. Skate Plissken in the box from the previous jam.
Now you can see there, he took a little bit of a hop and a little bit of a turn on one skate there, but he wasn't sure if he was in or out. So he just paused for a second, made sure he was clear from the rest, and then just carried on. Again, that whole playing it safe element. If you're not too sure, just either look at the ref or just take yourself off track and kind of restart again. And Optimus Grime claimed himself 8 points in total for that jam, adding to the total score of Manchester 194 to Lincolnshire with 50. Quite a spread out score, I must say.
Indeed. Manchester, as well as having trained hard throughout the year, just moving into a timeout now, as well as training hard this year for British Championships, they've also been training very hard for the upcoming Men's Roller Derby Association Championships to be held in Denver. I believe Denver that later this year, I say later this year, it's next month. Because somehow we're already in late September. The year is running away and I do not care for it at all, if I'm honest. But yes, in October, Manchester have already qualified to compete in the MRDA Championships. So they are preparing to head over to the United States to compete. And I'm very excited because right now Dancing Diamond has just picked up lead jammer for Lincolnshire's Fugly Ducklings. Dancing Diamond, a recent transfer to Fugly Ducklings and LRT as a whole, and played her debut game with Fuglies yesterday afternoon. And she was a little bit emotional afterwards. She had a really, truly fantastic time. And I've known her for a couple of years, and I am honestly so happy that she's having such a wonderful time, and she's and this step in her roller derby sort of career, so to speak, is being so positive. Also, another member of the Island Men's training squad, so another international skater here for us as well.
Oh wow, so many different kinds of people, it's amazing.
I know, right?
It's crazy. And also a little bit more exciting for Dancing Diamond, as that was her first claim to lead jammer for this game. So a nice little praise for Dancing Diamond there. Very proud, and just kind of embrace the energy from the audience for that.
Drink it in.
Absolutely. Okay, so lining up for the next jam here. 2 Manchester blockers are already sat in the box, so technically 2 Manchester blockers total on track at the minute, and Lincolnshire have a full pack advantage, allowing all 4 blockers to be on the track at the time. So this may be a fairly easy pass to Lincolnshire, but then again, we never know. They may be strong blockers, they may work very well together. So we don't know until the official whistle's blown. But you can see already the 2 jammers at the back kind of hugging it out and just kind of saying like, there's no trouble here. It's all just a friendly atmosphere. It's amazing.
It's exactly that. I mean, these 2 teams know each other relatively well. The MRDA community within the UK, they all know each other pretty well. It's a good community. The whole roller derby community, full stop. It's pretty solid.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of love, and obviously we've all been in Defensive Manor Sports Complex this weekend, sweating it out. It's been warm.
Very.
I'm not sure where you all are watching at home, but it's been very warm here. Even with the rain today, it's been very warm, and the humidity. Good grief.
Oh goodness me.
Yeah, it's we've had some weather in the hall, but yeah. So we've had some stuff, but it's the teams. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of camaraderie. And just a really good kind of atmosphere. And
wow.
It was a near photo finish, but Rufio for Manchester has come out as lead. So even with that pack advantage.
A bit of a rough and tumble there, but No one seems to got hurt, which is a very good thing. Everyone's back up and willing to skate. And also just going back to that initial pass where Rufio playing that lead jammer position, running up on the inside line on his toe stops with very little space.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nail biting. That's just crazy.
This is the thing. This is the thing that always baffles me is when people sort of go up on their toe stops and do all that really just delicious footwork. It's like, it's one thing making your feet that tiny, but how do you move your body through that tiny space? Because your feet, yes, can move on the head of a pin, but what? Physics. It's not fair.
Yeah, I don't get that. If I had an answer for that, I'll be able to answer for you.
Yeah, answers on a postcard, folks. to defying science.
Okay, so Bear Skills jamming for Lincolnshire. Takes a nice little hit out there from Shrooms, being nicely recycled back there. But before he can claim any more points, the jam has been called off.
Good jam for both teams. 16 points to Manchester, 10 to Lincolnshire. 2:18 Manchester, 67 Lincoln. 19:43 left on the period clock. It's just good blooming roller derby.
Oh, absolutely. Doesn't matter what the score is. It's just good roller derby. Full stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we've got ourselves a lead jammer, which is Manchester. Fish claiming lead jammer position, but then very quickly calling off the jam. That must be the shortest jam I have seen all weekend.
I think you might be right. So we talked about sometimes it's a tactical thing. So Fish was your lead jammer. However, Skate Pliskin was straight out of the pack, right behind him, less than 2 or 3 feet behind. And Fish obviously went, you know what? There's no point in running this. I'm not going to waste my energy. By the time I get to the pack, he's either going to be right there with me or he might have overtaken me. I'm not going to give the points away. I'm just going to call it off.
Absolutely. Smart jamming right there. Okay, so it looks like jamming.
Haven't seen any jammer line dancing for a while.
Oh, that is amazing.
That's absolutely wonderful, and that speaks volumes to the spirit of the sport. We've lost Jez for a moment. She's laughing. You take your time, sweet. So we've got Optimus Grime and Dancing Diamond back on the jammer line. Grime is your lead jammer. Diamond being taken off by Scotty Dog and recycled. But we have had a start pass, and Dawny is now your active jammer. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
fantastic,
back.
fantastic.
It's just stuff like that
Back
makes
in the
me
room.
chuckle.
It was wonderful.
And this backs up of what we were saying. Roller derby is an amazing community.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter on the score. Everyone's here to have fun.
Absolutely. Grime picked up 4 points calling off the jam, but not quite quick enough. The star pass went to Dawny, and he managed to bag himself 2 points as well. And isn't it odd that Manchester picked up, they're now on 222 points, all those little ducks in a row against the Ugly Ducklings. I'm sorry.
Had to be done.
To be fair, I was punning pretty hard this morning in-house. While we take our commentary relatively seriously, given the nature of the sport, we all have ridiculous names. We also pun and make jokes quite heavily as well. We're entertainers
It's
to an extent.
It had to be done.
Yeah. It's a skill.
And jamming for Manchester, we have Velociraptor, who is also your lead jammer. And jamming for Lincolnshire, we do have Bear Skills. And looks like Bear Skills has just been taken off for a penalty, giving Velociraptor a 30-second power jam advantage.
That penalty bringing Bear Skills into the hot zone, as we call it, bringing up to 5 penalties. A couple of people getting warm. We've got 5 people across the 2 teams on 4 penalties. my mistake. I totally misread those numbers. It's Cloud Strike for NWO that is on 5 penalties. It's not even the right team. The statistics are right here for me, Jez, and I'm absolutely misreading them.
We've all done it. It's absolutely fine. It's what happens.
Yeah. We're back to it, and I'm just going to segue across. We've Rufio heading straight to the penalty box for, I believe that was a low block. He fell down off the line, and his falling resulted in another skater falling over him. It's an unfortunate penalty.
And sometimes it's a penalty that can't always be avoided, but it's best to avoid it when possible.
Yeah.
So now Manchester's jammer Rufio claiming lead and is managing to get himself out the pack once again, racking up those points. Bear Skills now back on track, being nicely pushed off there, but before he could even complete his initial, the jam got very quickly called off there. Again, smart jamming in a nutshell, really.
Yeah. We have just a quarter of this game left. After the game, we will be passing you down trackside to one of our co-announcers, Coco, for some interviews with a couple of skaters. They can tell you how they found the game, and then, of course, we will pass you over to some other members of our crew for the rest of the games this afternoon. But right now, we've got... What have we got? Tell me.
So jamming for Manchester, we have Lieutenant Dam, who is also claiming lead jammer position. And we have Skate Plinsken jamming for Lincolnshire. And Lieutenant Dan out the pack once again, claiming 4 more points for his team. And he just approached the pack there with a little bit of hesitance. He was planning to go in with full power, but then saw the blockers and just thought, you know what, that may be a danger zone for me. I'm going to slow myself down and maybe go for a bit more of a nimble path. And for him, it worked very well. It doesn't always work for everyone, but at that moment for him, it worked very well. And we have Skate Pilskin just coming out the front of the pack, going up against 2 Manchester blockers there. Shrooms really trying to knock him out, but it wasn't quite enough. Skate Plinsken managed to keep his balance on the outside of the track and managed to stay on track to be able to get out of the pack to claim those points for himself.
It was some really nice reforming from Manchester's walls. Pliskin repeatedly thinking that he was out of the pack, but no, all of a sudden the blockers were back there.
Yes.
He was like, you again? I'm sure I've already passed you. we must stop meeting like this, please.
Nothing beats a bit of blocker waterfalling.
Yes. Optimus Grime and Dancing Diamond facing off once again. Familiar jammer pairing.
And once again, Dancing Diamond, after hearing the double whistle initiating that Optimus Grime is the lead jammer, instantly took her helmet cover off, either to hide it away from the blockers, to kind of fool with them a little bit, to make it look like she may pass or she may not. But at this point, she's stuck right at the back, really struggling to even stretch to pass the helmet cover to the pivot, as Manchester really locked her down.
And this is the thing, as you say, sort of to try and confuse the blockers, because you can absolutely do like fake out. There's nothing in the rules that say that once you've removed the helmet cover, you have to complete the star pass. And that's something that I really love. It's totally your prerogative. It's up to you as the jammer what you then do with that cover. If you want to hold on to it and try and sneak your way through like you've got some kind of cloak of invisibility now that it's not on your head, go for it. But this time round, Dancing Diamond has chosen to pass it to her pivot, Dorney. He's not had a chance to make any impact with it because Grime has called off the jam after a tidy 20 points. You know, nothing fancy.
20 points is a lot for one jam. That is crazy. Just going back to the star pass, you have said they can choose to or not to pass. In my history, I have seen a jammer and a block and a pivot have the jammer passing the helmet cover to the pivot, and the pivot had hold of it, but then the pivot let go, and the jammer just took it back and then ran for it, and it worked. So it's just little stuff like that to just mess with the blockers a little bit. I mean, even after the jammer has passed the star to the pivot and the pivot's just run off with it, the jammer could still pretend they're still jamming and kind of running into the blockers a little bit, just to kind of still keep the blockers engaged and thinking that person's the jammer when the jammer's long gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that both you and I will have seen those, what I refer to as silky smooth star passes that are so good you don't know they've happened, and the blockers are still blocking the person who is no longer the jammer, and they don't realise they're no longer the jammer until the pivot comes up on a scoring pass, and it's like, oh,
well, that happened.
and they only realise because the pivot then comes sailing round on the outside line, scoring points, and they're like, oh no, my points. So it looks like a penalty has been assessed during that timeout. Optimus Grime sat in the penalty box now. It looks like a cut penalty was assessed, brings him up to 5, and that means we're starting on a power jam for Bear Skills.
And Bear Skills went in with a huge amount of energy and speed, willing to kind of just swiftly nimble past these blockers just to try and get that lead jammer position. And so he does, like a little bit of juking from the outside to the inside to go in between the blockers to challenge that wall a little bit, and they were able to get out. And looky, we just saw an absolute perfect shirt whip from what we saw earlier when we mentioned the arm whip. Optimus Grime just grabbing a blocker's shirt and just pulling himself around just to get some extra speed. Oh, it works every time. Nothing gives you speed like the whip.
I feel like that should be like some kind of advertisement. Nothing gives you speed like the whip.
It's a reference from the film Whip It.
Love it.
I don't know if you...
Yeah, I've seen it. To be fair, I was a good 3 or 4 years into roller derby before I saw it. I wasn't one of the people who saw Whip It and then wanted to go and find roller derby.
I watched it on my first year of skating and I fell in love with it, and I still watch it now.
It is a wonderful film. If you haven't seen it, directorial debut of Drew Barrymore, I think? Yes. Yeah, it's a wonderful film.
And that kind of, it's kind of like the basics of roller derby. So if you guys want to get a little bit of a better idea of background and stuff like that, that is a good film to watch. It's also a good comedy as well.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely speaks to the camaraderie and the love and the community. There's a lot more hitting and illegal contact in that. They're also playing on banked track, whereas we're playing flat track.
Yes. But anyway, speaking of flat track, so jamming for Manchester we have Velociraptor, and jamming for Lincolnshire we have Dancing Diamond, and Velociraptor has claimed the lead jammer position whilst Dancing Diamond is still stuck at the back of the pack, going up against Shrooms. So then,
Dancing Diamond looking for the outside line, and she found it. Looks like we're going to have some defensive jamming now. Velociraptor holding Dancing Diamond.
Really trying to hold her back or even knock her off, but that was enough for Dancing Diamond. She had enough balance for her toe stocks to kind of run on the inside.
But not quite.
I spoke too soon.
Yeah.
She may have just accidentally stepped her toe stock on the inside of the line, giving herself a cut track, and therefore sitting herself in the penalty box for a good 30 seconds. Velociraptor still stuck within the pack, trying to push himself way through and try and use his teammates for offense as best as he can. But the only downside to all 4 blockers going up for offense for the jammer is that it just gets into a massive cluster of people, and you don't always get the gaps that you need. So as we mentioned before about a cliche rule, there's two starting lines here. So the jammers that are starting further back, they can't cross a line which we call the jammer line. It's kind of like a starting line for the jammers themselves. And then 30 feet in front, we have a second line, which is known as the pivot line. And the pivot with the stripe on their helmet, they normally do this thing that if they want to claim the very front of the pack, the pivot will put his or her skate or toe stop on that pivot line to kind of claim that area, because once that pivot skate is on that line, no players can pass that player's hips. So it's a really good kind of claiming area kind of thing. And you can see Peacock was just doing that and allowing her team just to kind of claim the front of the pack, which worked very well, giving Rufio a nice little lead jammer claim there.
Yeah, so when we were talking about it earlier, when Peacock did that very interesting stance with their toe stop on the pivot line, and was then the rest of their body was very far back from the pivot line. Basically, nobody would have been able to stand in front of their hips, which is why there was that really sort of wide straddled stance, because everybody else would have had to stand much further behind their hips. And I was like, yeah, that's a bit strange, but we'll talk about that later. But as very well explained there by Jez, that is the reasoning, that's the pivot line and the special pivot rule. And I think that's how I'm going to refer to it from now on, the special pivot rule. So we've got Dorney starting as a jammer this time round.
Yeah, a bit of a stack up there between Rufio, Dancing Diamond, and another Manchester blocker. But everyone's back up and back on skating, so no one got hurt, which is always good to hear. And you can see right here, you've got two Manchester blockers holding back one Lincolnshire blocker. That is what we like to call goating. And goating is just another term just to allow the jammer to get that one extra point. So holding back the opposing jammer is one blocker, is going to be a blocker that the jammer can very easily pass. And therefore, it can be a point where if the lead jammer of that jam was coming up behind the pack and they pass that goat, already claiming that 1 point, they can very easily call it off and they have 1 point in the bag.
Yeah, exactly. So fresh jam, and we're seeing Lieutenant Dan back up to jam for the first time in a little while. He's facing off against Bear Skills, and Dam has picked up lead. However, he was taken off just coming into turn one, so he's had to recycle himself back around the back of the pack to ensure that he's not risking cutting any players, as we've mentioned before.
So we've got Bear Skills just going up against Shrooms there, but Shrooms was out of play, being too far away from the pack, and therefore was told no pack, and at that point he had to surrender the jammer, allowing the jammer to go past very easily.
Yeah, so when we explained to you earlier about when Optimus Grind picked up that the blocking out of play penalty, when we saw Shrooms just now sort of standing upright, hands in the air, that was him indicating sort of, I'm not actively blocking, this is me disengaging from the jammer, I'm clearly not blocking, please don't issue me a penalty. Normally it is sufficient to just sort of stop blocking, but I know a lot of blockers like to make it very clear that they are not engaging in blocking, and will often sort of take that physical stance of upright, arms in the air, I'm not hands are here, I'm not doing anything, you can see me, I'm not being bad.
And you'll see that also when associated with penalties as well, because you can't, once you're given the penalty, you can't carry on skating forward. You have to go off immediately in terms of health and safety for the other players as well.
Yeah, or when it is, as soon as it is safe and legal to do so.
Yes.
So if you're right in the middle of the pack, obviously you wouldn't be expected to just skate through a bunch of people. You might then sort of go, right, I'm disengaging from everyone, wait for the pack to move away from you, and then exit the track.
Yes.
But yeah, so you might put your hands up going, to indicate I've got a penalty, don't make contact with me, I need to leave the track. Yeah, very good point actually.
So right there, we just saw Optimus Grime claiming lead jammer, claiming himself 4 points before very quickly calling it off, ready for the next jam.
And we are moving into the final minutes of this game. 4.5 minutes remaining to be precise. Scores are sitting Manchester Roller Derby's New World Order 296 points, Lincolnshire Rolling Thunder's Thugly Ducklings 77 points.
And up next, jamming for Lincolnshire, we have Dancing Diamond going up against Velociraptor. And Velociraptor, I was just about to say, stuck at the back of the pack, but very quickly made an outcome, being very quick and choosing which side to go through, doing a little bit of juking. To then very quickly run on the outside lane to claim that lead jammer position.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. If you were watching the feat, you will have seen that Gazabite took a really slick star pass from Dancing Diamond over the pack on that first straightaway, came up to turn 1 and 2 and did a sort of a hop, skip and a jump almost, but did a kind of a 180 turn in the midst of it. I wish I had better terminology for jumps and things. Maybe I'll have to look into some artistic skating so that I can talk better about these things, but it looked really nice.
Silk smooth.
Silky,
star pass.
silky smooth.
Silky smooth. Oh, never beat the silky smooth star
Never
pass.
beat it.
Okay, next jamming, we have Rufio going up against Bear Skills. These guys have been paired up quite a fair bit throughout these jams.
Big recycle from Dorney. However, Rufio with a quick recovery, finding space on the inside line, and he is already up, coming up to the pack for a scoring pass.
And Rufio, you kind of see he was approaching with huge amount of caution there, thinking where is he going to go, what speed does he have to go at? So he just kind of slowed himself down, played it very safely, and managed to do a toast run on the inside lane of the apex to be able to get out to claim himself 4 more points. But at this point, he just took himself back for recycling due to being off the track, and now he's coming around claiming 4 more points.
Yeah, he is coming to the close of a power jam. Bear Skills picking up, I believe it was a back block penalty towards the start of the jam. And it looks like his time had elapsed as the jam, as Rufio called the jam off. Wasn't quite quick enough to freeze him into the penalty box. Final 2 minutes of the game. Manchester Roller Derby's New World Order have cracked their way into that third century, 312 points to 78.
Wow, very huge difference. But both teams have worked very hard to get this far. And jamming for Manchester, we have Lieutenant Dan going up against Lincolnshire's Skate Pilskin. And as you can see, Lieutenant Dan takes a nice hit out there from number 8 on the Lincolnshire Blockers team.
Solid recycle by Gazabite, and really quick reformation to the front of the pack with his 3-wall. Dam just getting around the hips of Lil Joker at the front of the pack. Skate Pliskin in the penalty box. Forearms penalty being assessed to him previously, but he is back on track now.
So we now have an empty penalty box with all 8 blockers and both jammers on track. But oh, look at that! Lieutenant Dan took the opportunity for an apex jump on the inside, and he took it and he cleared it.
I kind of want to call that an over-under in or out, because Pliskin went straight through the pack, clearing the pack on track, and Lieutenant Dan decided to go over the pack. I'm not sure where the under comes, but that the over under just for the words.
Yeah.
We've said a lot of words this weekend, folks.
So
to be fair, you've got some of the best of them. but yeah, we've kind of reached a point.
Yeah, so if you
nearly at capacity.
If we do get a little bit tongue-tied, please forgive us for that. We have done, as Snuggin said, we have done a lot of talking this weekend, and we will try and keep our words nice and clear as best we can.
We are moving into the final seconds of this game. We have had a team timeout called by the Thugly Ducklings with 26 seconds left on the period clock. That means that there should be enough time left for one more jam.
And at this point, most teams, from what I see, if they know it's the final jam coming up, they'll put on all stronger blockers and very
power
solid
lineup, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. A power lineup, absolutely, where they play all the best players for that final jam, just to see how many points they can get, and to kind of give the opposing team that little bit more of a challenge that they'll remember.
I mean, it's on a full 80-wheeler, empty penalty box. And of course, as I say that, a whistle gets blown, and that's Bear Skills taking a seat. So this is a power jam in favour of Optimus Grime and New World Order, although Grime is taken to the infield, so he's going to have to reset.
And Optimus Grime takes the opportunity to go on the outside lane there, and kind of using his power just to kind of clear the path for him against Lincolnshire's Ugly Ducklings. And it works very beneficially for him as he's claimed the lead jammer position. And with Bear Skills still stuck within the penalty box, he still has some time to kind of claim points. And as soon as I said that, Bear Skills is back on track.
Exactly. Peacock going in to try and offer some offense for Grime. Everything happening off track, but we have a jammer race in action right now, but all the contact happening right in front of your very eyes, folks.
We did have a bit of off-camera jammer defense there. Each jammer trying to kind of take each other on, just to kind of slow each other down, just to kind of give themselves that little challenge for that final jam. And the audience, as you heard through our microphones, absolutely loved it. And I'm a little bit gutted. We didn't catch it on camera.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, points on the board for both teams at the end in that final jam, which is always lovely to see. We will wait for our official final scores, of course, for things to be tabulated, if you will. And we can confirm that is your official final score, folks. Lincolnshire Roller Derby at Lincolnshire Rolling Thunders, Thugly Ducklings on 80 points. And Manchester Roller Derby's New World Order, 327 points.
Quite a huge points difference for two amazing teams. Both teams played tremendously well, and it was just very entertaining to watch. And all teams that have been attending this weekend have worked very hard to get this far, and it's absolutely amazing to witness all the competitive spirits, but also the sportsmanship within the game as well. Absolutely brilliant and very inspiring to many people.
Incredibly inspiring, and that does of course mean that ultimately New World Order take the gold medal place in Tier 1 MRDA aligned division. So congratulations to them.
Huge congratulations, absolutely.
Thugly Ducklings placing second, and if the information that I have is correct, Glasgow Men's Roller Derby taking the bronze medal place as well.
Well, huge congratulations to those three teams. They played tremendously well, and as I said, being very inspiring to everyone here and to other skaters as well. We do have plenty of skaters that look up to each other and kind of share hints and tips and friendships and everything, which is brilliant.
You're absolutely right, Jez. I mean, this might sound a little bit corny or something like that. If you've been watching this so far today and you yourself have been inspired, as Jez mentioned earlier, there are no limitations. To play this kind of roller derby, your only limitation is that you need to be 18 or over. There are junior leagues involved. There are junior leagues for roller derby. So if you have small people who are watching, hi kids, you can get involved in that as well. My best recommendation would be for you to get onto social media, search engines, search your local area, search for roller derby. I guarantee you will find leagues and teams near you. who will be able to teach you how to skate, teach you how to play the game, teach you how to do the rules. You can either be involved as a skater and a player, as we mentioned before, a skater or a non-skating official, as a commentator like us, or, as we mentioned, bench crew, volunteers. As we've said, all of the teams and the leagues and all of these events are volunteer run. It takes a lot to make roller derby events and leagues run, and we're always looking for more people to get involved. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, there's plenty of space. We do hope that you are enjoying your time here with us. Of course, we do have 2 more fantastic games for you. Taken to the track right now for their warm-up. I can see Wiltshire Roller Derby beginning their warm-up process. They will be taking on... my mind is totally blanked out. Yes, they will be taking on a team, and it will be fantastic. We will be passing over to our stream co-commentators, who will be able to give you even more information about that very, very soon. I believe we have an interview for you downstairs. It's North Wales, of course it's North Wales. I called that game this morning. It was ruddy fantastic. So we will be passing down to Coco, who will be doing the interviews right now. We're going to throw down to them. So thank you so much for being with us for this first game today. Thank you, and down to Coco trackside for interviews.
Hi, and welcome to Trackside, where we have just watched New Wheeled Order play Lincolnshire Rolling Thunder Thugly Ducklings. I'm here with Lil Joker and Fish, who have just played in that game. How was it for you, Joker?
It was a tough game. It's always going to be an incredibly tough and fun game when you play NWO. It's a game I've got a lot of history with. The Thuglies have been working super hard this season, and to finish on this against the team that's actually currently ranked 5th in the world rankings is just amazing. So I couldn't be more proud of everyone I was on track with.
How was it for you?
It was good. Hats off to LRT. They brought a really good fight. Good kind of opportunity was to get ready for going out in Denver soon. So appreciate the fight. Good game, and we'll just continue to improve.
Yeah, that was what I was going to come on to next. Yes, you are off to the MRDA Championships. How have you feel that this season has prepared you for that?
We've had a lot of chop and change last season. Some really new players have joined recently, and they've just taken us to that next level, brought new ideas, new things, so excited. Think we know who we're playing. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but we're looking forward to giving them another beating.
We're all going to be watching as well. So for you, Joker, how has this season been for you in total?
Season's been a bit on and off, like for me personally, because I played for the A team and the B team. I played I think 1 or 2 games with the Thuglies this year. Unfortunately, various reasons we're not going to champs, and I wanted to come into this just to give it our all. The Thuglies have been grafting really hard. This is the only loss they've had this season. They've won every game. They beat Glasgow yesterday in an incredibly tough game, so hats off to Glasgow. They brought a really physical game, and it did mess with our heads for a bit. It was always going to be a pleasure to play NWO because they play a really tactical game. They train hard, they play hard. I couldn't give the utmost respect to every member, especially this guy here.
The thing is that obviously at the level that you guys are at, and obviously a lot of the teams here today from the MRDA side, we've all met so often throughout this year. What I'd like to ask you, Fish, is what was your favourite part of this game? Let's not talk about your best blocker. For best moment of this game.
Just everything coming kind of clicking on track. There was a couple of times we had a power jam. Something we've been working on quite a bit, and just keeping people apart was really, really good. 1 jam left, I was down to block, but it ran a bit longer, so next time.
Because we know you're the best blocker, that's it. And for you, Joker, what was your favourite part of this game?
I think it was just seeing the team come together and giving these guys a hard game and make them work for every point they put on that board. Because, like I said, they're 5th in the world. Like, this is like the B team going up against an amazing team. we put down an incredibly tough score. We made them work, and I hope you didn't find it super easy. But yeah, but you know, it's just, and we had 2 players that it was their first games yesterday and today with us. So even like we've had like changes in our rosters and things recently. So it's just been really enjoyable. Like just the whole game. The whole game was the best bit. It's just
Yes, it was Dance and Diamonds' first game with Lincoln yesterday. Absolutely sterling effort. So how do you plan to spend your off-season? I know it's a little while away yet, but how do you plan to spend it, Fish?
My off-season started like 3 months ago. I'm just winding down. A lot of CrossFit probably. No one knows that, but yeah.
And for you, Joker?
for me. I haven't fully told the team this yet, but I'm taking a break from LRT. It's been a long time that I've been doing this, but I'm not quitting roller derby. Last year I paid for Team Poland, so I'm going to be concentrating on that and travelling around. Hopefully I'm going to come and visit these guys, go to a few other teams around, come and play with the Brawlers for a little bit, and just so I can concentrate on seeing what the Eagles can do at the World Cup. Yeah, just enjoying it. I've been doing this since 2007 in the UK, and I started playing from the very first ever training session. So I think I need a bit of a break from league stuff.
Well, you never really quit roller derby, do you though?
I'm not going to quit. I'm just taking a break from league stuff, and then hopefully, because there's been a little bit of ups and downs with the team at the minute, hopefully when I come back there'll be a solid team to come back to. So.
It seems like most teams go through that anyway, and to be honest, like, I don't think we'd let you leave, to be fair, Joker. I don't think you are disliked by anybody. Everybody loves you.
I'll come back to announcing for a bit.
Yeah, well, do that. But, so we're going to wrap up here. Thank you very much for giving your time. Congratulations, New World Order, and we'll see you on the stream for MRDA Champs, and we will see Lincoln, I'm sure, very, very shortly.
I just want to give a big thank you to all of the NSOs, refs, everyone that makes this possible, because we turn up and skate. We can't do it if they're not here. So, thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time, and we're going to go back upstairs to our in-house announcer.